Hello there, and welcome once again to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Meyers. We're here every week, meeting interesting people and dealing with topical issues. And we welcome a guy today. He's got a very busy life.
Well, he does indeed. It's the Honorable John Kane, the Chief Justice of the Oklahoma Supreme Court. He has been Chief Justice now for a year and is starting his second year. Has a wealth of experience prior to ever coming to the court or becoming Chief Justice, which I think has got him about as adequately prepared as one could be, and he is doing a grand job from all reports.
And we're going to get to know him a little better today on The Verdict. We'll be right back.
Right now, 6 feet can feel like a long ways away. But from 6 feet, we can still smile at each other. From our doorways and our stairways, from opposite sides of the street and opposite sides of the country. Through fear and frustrations, we can remind each other that we are still here for each other. Because we can still smile at each other. And we're not going anywhere.
Military service ran in my blood, starting from my father, which joined the Navy, on the Chickasaw side, my uncle, which served in the United States Army. I'm Benjamin Espinosa, Chief Petty Officer, United States Navy, and I'm Chickasaw. I went to the Secretary of Defense's staff at the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., which ultimately led to becoming a combat support technician for Naval Special Warfare, specifically SEAL Team 10. I think to be proud and to love your tribe, to love being Chickasaw, you also have to love being American. You also have to love everything that America stands for. Equality, perseverance, professionalism, and power. I want my family to know that their father is a good person, but also feels that he has an obligation to the country and to love this nation. Anything worth having is worth dying for. The military and the country owes me nothing. I owe it everything.
See more stories about the Chickasaw people at profilesofanation.com.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Meyers. Kent's going to introduce today's guest.
Well, as we talked about in the open, our guest today is the Honorable John Kane, Chief Justice of the Oklahoma Supreme Court. A little bit about Justice Kane. He did his undergraduate work at Oklahoma State University, did his law work at the University of Oklahoma. He had a very varied, successful practice of law background before becoming a member of the Oklahoma Supreme Court. He started out in private practice with his firm in Pawhuska. When he joined the firm, he told us that the name of the firm became Kane, Kane, and Kane. It gives you an idea. That was a family firm. He did private practice with the firm for a while, became an assistant district attorney in that area, was also an administrative law judge, a little different position, for Department of Human Services. He became a district judge and served for 14 years. He was appointed to the Oklahoma Supreme Court in 2019, and he ascended to the position of Chief Justice last year in 2023. Justice Kane, sure glad to have you.
Good morning. It's sure good to be here.
Thank you.
Let's start at the very beginning. What was growing up in Pawhuska like?
Well, growing up in Pawhuska was wonderful. I loved my life in Pawhuska. I was a Pawhuska Husky for all my school years, and I received fantastic training, had a wonderful community, and it was nothing but good.
Yeah, and public education, I
Yes.
suppose. How was that? Did you feel like you were well prepared for what comes later?
I was fantastically well prepared. I had very good instruction in Pawhuska. Went on to Stillwater, and you know, like every college kid, you show up and you really don't know what's going to happen, how you're going to do. And I found out that I had been very well prepared in Pawhuska. I did well in Stillwater, and then went on to Norman for OU Law School, and continue to be grateful for the education I got there in Pawhuska.
Well, let's talk about your undergraduate career then at OSU. What was that about?
Well, my family has a marked lack of imagination. I'm Matthew John Kane the fourth, and my son is Matthew John Kane the fifth. And my son Matthew, like myself and like my father, we're all Oklahoma State University College of Agriculture students. And so I got my degree in agriculture economics. They call it Ag Econ, and with a double major in accounting. But it was always my hope and interest that I would use that training to go on to law school, because my dad was my role model, and the only difference was Dad was a rancher at heart that was a very good lawyer, and I always felt like I was a lawyer at heart that did a little ranching.
Well, you're still involved in that, I guess, as much as you can be.
Yes, my son Matthew is the true rancher in the family,
Yeah.
but I'm still an aficionado.
Well, talk about your background and how it prepared you, if it did, for your service on the Supreme Court.
Yeah, I told the governor when I interviewed to be on the Supreme Court that I always felt like that being on the Oklahoma Supreme Court would be my New York Yankees job.
Yeah.
My great-grandfather, the first Matthew John Kane, was on the first Oklahoma Supreme Court, and he served as Chief Justice 3 times. So growing up, I always thought, boy, if you could do that, you've really done it. Now, you can't orchestrate a position on the Supreme Court. You cannot make yourself smart enough to be on the Supreme Court. You cannot make yourself popular enough to be on the Supreme Court. As Justice Cogger says, it's a little bit like getting hit by lightning. It's either going to happen or it's not. But everything in my career, as I look back now, was very good at preparing me for where I am today. And I've always been blessed with a sense of purpose. Everything I've ever done, I felt like I was doing what I should be doing at that moment, and that's very rare. I didn't realize that as a young man, but when I passed the bar and became a private practitioner, that just felt absolutely right. It felt like what I should be doing. When I was appointed to the trial bench in 2005, again, it just felt like that's what I needed to be doing, and again in 2019. You ask about how all of that prepared me. Of course, I was a private practitioner for the longest period of anything I've ever done. So for 17 years, I was doing a great calling. I think if you're a lawyer, you're not a businessman. Certainly shouldn't be. When you're a lawyer, you're a servant. Your clients have goals. Their goals become your goals, and you work together with them to achieve those goals, and it's very satisfying. So I obviously learned the ropes for 17 years practicing law, and then in 2005 I got a chance to ascend to the bench, and I was going to the same party. It's just that now I'm the host, and I felt very comfortable with that. And of course there was a learning curve, but I picked it up. Always found that to be a great calling. The pressure changes. When you're a lawyer, the pressure is to achieve your client's goals. And you have control over your presentation, but you don't have control over the final result. And that's stressful. When you're the judge, the stress is just to get it right. Your job is to get it right. And it's a different stress, but it's one that I enjoy.
Is that regardless of the presentation?
It is. It is. The presentation definitely helps, but you can't win based on style points alone. You got to have substance.
Well, we were talking off camera before we began a little bit about the in-bank oral arguments before the Oklahoma Supreme Court and how you had one this week. I have often thought and still think that the most enjoyable time in my law practice has been arguing in bank before the Oklahoma Supreme Court. Not any federal courts, no matter how high they may be, not any other state courts, no denigration intended there, but it is just going into that old courtroom, and then I guess we have a new one now, but going into that room with the 9 justices sitting up on the bench really can jerk you into reality and say, oh my gosh, am I prepared? If I'm not, maybe I'll be executed. It really, though, has been the highlight from a personal achievement standpoint of my career to be able to argue a good bit before the court with all the members present. How do you see it as Chief Justice now when those arguments take place and you're the presiding officer?
Well, let me confirm what's probably a hope of yours, Kent, and that is I can vouch that those arguments make a difference. They are helpful to the court. I was shocked as a young trial judge at how informative an argument of counsel could be, because I always assumed, as a former writer of briefs, that if I had typed up a legal brief that set forth all of the arguments and law applicable in the most persuasive way that I could dream up at the moment, that once the judge had read that, that would take care of it. Yeah. But what I found out, both as a trial judge and now on the Supreme Court, is that there is a certain organic give and take that occurs during oral argument where either a law or a fact can be represented in a different light in a way that might help the court understand an argument better than the court had prior to the argument. And it can make a real difference to the case, and I'm a strong proponent for oral argument.
We're going to get us to a break. Chief Justice John Kane is our guest today on The Verdict, and we'll be right back.
At Whitten Burridge, we're litigators. That's all we do. All of our clients, some sort of wrong has occurred to them. We try to right that wrong. Corporate America, they have all the power. It's sort of like going against an army. I like helping the underdog. That's what gets me up out of bed every day.
Our success rate is phenomenal, but that's not all they get. We care about people.
I'm very proud of what we've been able to do for our clients, and I'm looking forward to what we're going to do in the future. There's still a lot of wrongs that need to be righted.
OU Law has a history and heritage that are unparalleled. At the University of Oklahoma College of Law, we empower our students to pursue the career of their dreams. We have the highest U.S. News ranking ever achieved by an Oklahoma law school. We are the first law school in the country to launch a college-wide digital initiative. And this year, our competition teams rank number 2 in the nation. OU Law, generations of excellence, limitless possibilities.
The Vet Hero office at the University of Central Oklahoma, it is a one-stop shop for veterans when they're trying to get their education.
I call it my encore job. I get to take care of veterans. We help them transition. I was that guy that transitioned after 24 years, and in the end, GI Bill is a benefit that those soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marine earned. It was the thing that made us the greatest country in the world coming out of World War II, and it will continue to do the same thing for this future generation of service members.
You're watching The Verdict. Chief Justice John Kane is today's guest. Ken?
Mr. Chief Justice, how do you like your service in that most elevated position of Chief Justice of the Supreme Court?
Well, as you might guess, it's an intimidating job, And when I was elected as Chief Justice, I was both elated and terrified. But what I found, having served now for a little over a year, is that I really love the work. I really, really enjoy what I do. And what I do, obviously, is serve as 1/9 of the group that decides the cases, so that hasn't changed. But I have more managerial demands to take care of the needs of people, and that applies both to people within and outside the court. And I find that very satisfying, and I do enjoy it very much. It is a burden that you carry all day, every day. You know, the first thing when you wake up, you know that you're responsible as the leader of a branch of government, and that's also with you when you go to bed at night. But it's a burden that I very proudly and happily carry.
I just want to add one more thing that your comment reminded me of. I had not told our viewers, of course, that this is one of the 3 basic branches of the Oklahoma state government is the judiciary, and the Chief Justice is in charge of that entire branch. Once cases get filed appropriately, whatever method it takes to get it there, how does a case flow through the Supreme Court from initial filing to final disposition?
Yeah, well, first of all, Oklahoma is one of only 2 states that have a dual path for their appellate cases.
Yeah.
Texas and Oklahoma both have a separate court for criminal matters, and all civil matters flow through the Supreme Court. So when the case starts, all the civil cases start with the Supreme Court. Now, many are then assigned to the Court of Civil Appeals,
which is a lower court.
Which is an appellate court, but
Right.
a lower appellate court. And there are some cases that present novel issues that the court elects to retain and not give to the Court of Civil Appeals. And the cases that go to the Court of Civil Appeals, obviously, will get a decision from that court first, and if either party is unsatisfied with the result, then they can ask the Supreme Court to take another look at it. The fancy legal term is writ of certiorari, but basically it just means we'd like the Supreme Court to take a look at that, and that is a discretionary call on our part. We don't accept cert on the grand many that are requested of us, because we do have specific criteria that we're looking at, whether there's been a difference of opinion between different divisions of the Court of Civil Appeals, or whether we feel like it's a sufficiently novel question, and whether it's going to impact the bench and bar in a way that they just need to hear from the Supreme Court. What surprised me, though, was how much work goes into a denial of a request for us to hear it. As a practitioner, sometimes I would be unhappy with the Court of Civil Appeals, and I would ask the Supreme Court to take a look at it. And Kent, you'll know what I'm talking about, but I'll describe it for the viewers. There's something we call an order sheet, and it will say the Supreme Court declines to hear the following cases, and there'll be maybe 15 cases on there, and your case is one of them. So it just looks like, no, that's all you see. And now that I'm on the court, I'm very impressed by the fact that there was a whole bunch of pondering and consideration and debating that went on before that final decision was made. Now, the cases that we do either retain or grant review for, they get assigned to a justice, and that justice is assisted. Every justice has 2 staff attorneys available that they can hire to assist them with their research and writing. The justice will present that for deliberation to our colleagues, and then obviously at that point it's a simple question of math. You got to get to 5.
Got 9 on the court.
You got to get 5 out of 9.
Okay.
You hear people say there's less civility today in our society. Does that sprinkle itself into the court system? And do you view that, and do you have an opinion about whether or not that's right?
I think it is right. I think it is right. I think that there are some differences in society in general, and I think that percolates into the practice of law. I was blessed to practice in a small town, and there are very pragmatic reasons to be civil in a small town, because the person that you are unkind to is going to be more inclined to be unkind to you the next week. and I think the temptation in a metropolitan practice where you think you might not see that person again, the temptation it might be greater. But I don't think it's really a problem of the bar, or at least it doesn't stem from the bar. I think it's society in general. It's just a little less civil than we used to be.
I have heard, and I've not researched it to know whether it's accurate or not, but there's a pendulum shift on civility. When I began practice many, many years ago, civility was enforced and followed by virtually everybody that was involved in the practice. And then in the early 70s, mid 70s, from some conduct in the East and West Coast by lawyers that thought they were pretty tough, there was a movement toward clients wanting to know if their lawyer is going to be tough enough to handle, meaning are you going to be tough enough to be rude, to swear, whatever might be in their mind. And I saw the pendulum shift toward less civility. That pretty well stopped in the early 90s. That beat 'em up attitude didn't last long for a couple of reasons. One, it got people in trouble, but second, it did not seem to improve their outcome on their case. As a matter of fact, may have hurt it. But in recent years, I see it starting to rear its head again with nobody in mind particularly, but with trials where clients and lawyers are saying things to judges, both on the record and off the record, that I never would have dreamed people would say. And whether they're getting by with it or not, I don't know. But I wonder, in your oral arguments, do you ever have occasion to pick up on, not in no particular argument in mind now, but pick up on the fact that civility may be lacking?
Well, that's really not a big issue for the Supreme Court, but what I've noticed is that people are less civil to people that seem to have less power, which is a very sad, I think, statement about a person. As a trial judge, my bailiff would say, hey, I've got so-and-so on the line, and they're rank. They are really in a bad mood, and they're treating me badly. And then I'll get on the phone, and they'd be just nice as pie to the judge. And I think that now that I'm on the Supreme Court, that's probably even more so.
Yeah. We got about 30 seconds left. Some quick advice for young people who might be considering a career in law?
Well, as I said earlier, I think it's important that you disabuse yourself of the notion that this is an academic pursuit. This is a people business, and you follow this because you have a servant's heart and you want to help people. And if you take this business as a way to make money, it will grind you up. And if you will take it as a way to serve, it will bless you.
Chief Justice John Kane, our guest today on The Verdict. Thanks so much.
Thank you, sir.
Kent and I will have a final word when we get back.
This is the epidemic of my generation. This is my HIV. This is my Black Plague.
In the midst of one of our state's largest crises,
Oklahomans are dying from this preventable and treatable disease on a daily basis.
we believe there's hope.
That little pill will cause destruction through your whole life.
Watch the entire award-winning 9-part docuseries Killing Pain, made available by Fighting Addiction Through Education at killingpain.com.
It used to be okay in hospitals. It used to be okay in movie theaters. It was okay in classrooms, restaurants, and airplanes. But thanks to a greater understanding of the dangers, that's not okay anymore. So now that we know secondhand smoke causes lifelong health problems, why is it still okay to smoke with children in the car? Bottom line, it's not okay. Let's get serious about protecting kids. Join the fight at stopswithme.com.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
You have children coming from a different lifestyle, different mindset. You have to open your arms and really do what you have to do to have that child become a part of your family. And if it's more patience, that's what you do. Kids gotta know they can trust you. And that's what we've tried to do with these kids.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
Welcome back to the set of the verdict. Our guest today, the Honorable Justice of the Supreme Court.
Yes. Justice Kane is well respected in the practice, as you might imagine, both as an outstanding lawyer but also an outstanding person. He's the kind of guy that can run a firm court without being mean, and he commands respect in a way that I think was thought of when the court system was put together.
We were talking off air. We've had every Chief Justice of the Supreme Court on since we started this show. That's like 23 years.
Yeah.
Divided by 2. That's a lot of.
That's about 12 or so.
Well, that's pretty good. We'll see you next week right here on The Verdict. Thanks.